Next, I'd like to welcome to the stage Phil Lucsok. Phil is the Ecosystem Communications Manager at Parity Technologies. And Phil has been working professionally in blockchain since 2013 for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Polkadot product and infrastructure projects. And he's also been at Parity since 2007 with a focus on technical and product communications. And today he's going to speak with us about decentralization by default. Sounds very exciting.
Hi, thanks, Stu. First of all, it's great to speak at CSCON. It's going really well so far.
For sure. And it's been an exciting day and a half so far. So yeah, feel free to share your slides if you have them, and then I can leave the stage for you.
All right. Yeah, let me see here. Just share, allow. Okay, everything looking good?
Good to go. Talk to you soon.
All right. So yeah, first off, I want to say thanks to the ChainSafe team for putting on this awesome event. I'm a huge fan of like multi-chain everything, and one of the reasons I joined Parity. And ChainSafe has also been a great team pioneering multi-chain technologies since their beginnings. So yeah, thanks to everyone here, and looking forward to the rest of the talks. Yeah, so the title of the talk is Decentralization by Default. It's going to first talk about the kind of importance of decentralization, also the importance of defaults, kind of the overarching view of how things should be in the ecosystem that we're all a part of. And then going into how we're trying to achieve this with Substrate and Polkadot, utilizing light clients. So, yeah. I'll be talking about defaults, decentralization, also focusing on like end users, trying to keep this really high level, and then builders as well, and then go into some more technical stuff with what we're doing with Substrate. So defaults are important, and it's one of the two main words of the talk. This is something I've talked about in previous talks of mine, but why are they important? It's because the system a user chooses to opt into comes with many defaults. And you might be joining a system or some sort of blockchain or an application for a certain reason, and you might not be aware of all the defaults that come with it, all the kind of baggage that comes with it. For instance, like back to the early days of me working at Parity, it's one of the differences of Ethereum and Polkadot are the way upgrades are done on chain. So when you, as a user, you download a client for Ethereum, the defaults of the upgrade path are very different than downloading the clients and running a node on Polkadot. Namely, the fact that when you download that node on Ethereum, you have to constantly opt into every upgrade that the community talks about. You can choose to stay with your old node and go on your own fork, like has been done in the way back past. Whereas with Polkadot, when you download the node, the decision is done on chain with the on-chain governance we have, and therefore the default is that you're trusting the client to follow the on-chain governance as opposed to you actively changing. So that's one example, like, and that's a very big difference between these two blockchains, and it comes with many trade-offs for each one. Not really here, but this is so important, and we experience defaults we're unaware of, defaults we are aware of as we use blockchain applications and blockchains themselves. The other thing is we must decentralize. This is obviously an important topic here. It's everything we're doing here. So in order to decentralize, we need to weed out the trusted third parties. And without going too deep into defining decentralization, that's not what this talk is about. It's a pretty large topic. We should really define what our goals ought to be for the products we're all contributing to in this space. So many services we actually use wouldn't be considered decentralized. The ones that allow us to on-ramp to blockchains, such as many, I would say 99% of users enter the space with centralized exchanges. So, and if we really look down to what decentralization is, it's really getting rid of not having trusted third parties. Now, we need to have sufficient decentralization that protects the users and the systems they use. So we should be continuously trying to weed out any points of centralization and that don't have the accountability that the rest of the system has built into it. And while we've seen great success in decentralization on the protocol layers of Bitcoin and Ethereum, there are many protocols, services, and wallets that haven't decentralized in a way that really correlates with user growth. And it's the problem of trying to keep up with user growth and decentralization. So the end user today, who is this user? It's gotten very different over the years, for sure. The culture has changed and adapted. It's grown. We've seen many new use cases, but in the end, today we're seeing, and especially in the last year, the end user is multi-chain, and whether this means they're using different layer 2s on Ethereum or using different L1s with different L2s, yeah, they're using many different blockchains and layer 2s. And when everyday mass market audiences actually pull their tokens out of those centralized exchanges and begin to benefit from the groundbreaking products on Web3 platforms, they don't even have the awareness, much less the time to care about the decentralization of the services they use. They're promised this by many people talking and writing articles and talking on Twitter and so on, but there's a lot of intricacies and nuances that are important. They simply want it to just work. That's the experience they have using modern day software products, Apple, Microsoft, all the main systems that come, Google services. I mean, Google's typing half the words for us at this point. They don't even want to work. They want it to work for them. So this is very important. The understanding the user today is somebody that cannot take the burden, the mental transaction costs of like, is this the proper thing to use? Why? And users have many different values. They may not even care so much about the decentralization at heart, and that's okay, but this puts the burden on the builders. It's all our responsibility to continue to build decentralized services. It's the problem really is the why it's the builder's burden is because there's such giant user growth right now, and to correlate with scalability and so on, to really scale up these systems, they just need to provide fast UXs so that the users just don't go somewhere else. And this has led to a type of competition that's really centralized a lot of blockchains. We've seen other blockchains out there who have done some trade-offs that really centralize the validation of blockchains and so on, and also UIs and the services those UIs connect to. So like, it's kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but Infura is a great product for Ethereum. It has allowed the ecosystem to scale up so quickly, and it's great. I'm not here to bash it. However, it is a central point of failure for many services, including centralized exchanges. We saw a year ago where Infura went down and users weren't able to withdraw their funds from centralized exchanges. And there's Infura, again, it's a great service that allows developers to easily scale up their dApps and other applications so that users can just get that convenience and great user experience that they're looking for with these groundbreaking products. So it's really all our responsibility. I'm not a developer or builder myself. However, it's even as a communications person, it's our responsibility to hold these services accountable, and even the things we build ourselves, and are a part of, and trying to represent in an honest way. So there have been some good initiatives in the blockchain ecosystem that are positive around this, and I'm going to focus on the light client. So on the client side, um, not necessarily the client side, but the clients in the ecosystem. There, there are many points of the blockchain tech stack, whether it's the consensus layer, execution, all these things, from from consensus protocol level all the way to the end user, buying an NFT, who's never really dealt with blockchain before. And one of the main layers I'm going to focus on is the client wallet interface. And this is where we've seen, Infura really being utilized to support MetaMask in great ways and everything. But we have to decentralize this layer as well. As we've seen, there's problems in this. It's not only for availability and that it might go down, it's also for user security, which I'll get into later, and also privacy. It's very important. So, yeah, many blockchain UIs are still centralized, which I'll get into as well. But I want to give some, before I get into Substrate-connect, I want to give some shout outs to like the other blockchains that are doing well. Nimbus is obviously a great initiative on the Ethereum side. Big hopes for that as ETH2 finalizes. And there's another smaller project called Nimiq, NIMIQ, which I found really, really cool, and is kind of similar to what I'm going to be talking about with Substrate-connect. And even Bitcoin, it's hard to find light clients that are actually usable. But I did find Nakamoto, which is a newer one that was proposed earlier this year. Haven't gotten around to test it myself. Obviously, Geth has a light client that I actually made sure it runs this morning. So that's cool to see as well. But the light client battle has been really, really a long time coming. It's really hard to build light clients after the fact. It's been a long battle with Ethereum. We've been at Parity. We're trying to build one for a long time, and with the transition to ETH2 and the way things are going, there's a really bright future for Ethereum. And on the Polkadot side of things, we've really, in building Substrate, we've put this in from the beginning. We really were aware of the importance of a light client, and encoding this in from the first lines of code was part of our plan. So the problem is that blockchain UIs are still centralized. Obviously, blockchains form peer-to-peer networks, and a user interface or wallet connects to one of the nodes. Here, I'm just going to now focus on Substrate and Polkadot. Substrate, by the way, is the framework for building blockchains. Polkadot is built with it, Substrate is built with it, and all the parachains we've been seeing being onboarded, such as Akala and Moonbeam, they're all built with it as well. So the user interface or wallet connects to a node. Some Polkadot examples are Polkadot.js and Fearless Wallet, and what they do is they pick a hosted node. And the issue with this can be that you're kind of trusting that whatever your node is connecting to is it's not trustless. The communication between your user interface and the node is very separate, and it needs to be communicated, and that involves a lot of trust. And part of this, as I said, is weeding out these trusted third parties. So it could lie. The node that you're connecting to could lie to your interface. It could just be unavailable, again, as we've seen before. And it's a good time to change it. So the current state of plugging UIs into blockchains is doing a user-controlled node. And I've done a lot of these, downloading the node software, compiling it, and running it yourself from block zero, and validating every node, full nodes in blockchains, Ethereum. I really like doing this, but not everyone does, and I understand why. It takes a long time, and it's really burdensome. To update, sometimes it's really burdensome. But they are secure. It's trustless. It connects to multiple nodes and verifies absolutely everything, every transaction and every block. But it is inconvenient. The next one that most people use is a publicly accessible node, where the UI connects to a third-party owned publicly accessible node client. An example of this on Bitcoin would be Electrum, where you see a list of servers and it's connecting to a server, something that blockchains were trying to get rid of. Yeah, obviously MetaMask does this as well. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff. I may be wrong, but I'm fairly certain MetaMask does. And the great thing for this, as I was talking about before with Infura, is it's convenient. It works really, really well and really quickly. You don't need to go through the burdens of hosting it yourself, connecting your UI to your own node, and making sure your node stays online and there's no issues that arise. You need to constantly be online and all that stuff, so you don't need it with this. So a third way that we're trying to build here at Parity is a node bundled with the UI, where a UI connects to the client that's directly integrated inside of this. Now, this would hopefully get you the benefit of both being secure and convenient without the trade-offs we've seen in the past. Yeah, so how do we actually achieve that? The node itself, as we've seen with other ones, are Electron-based, and they need to be in JavaScript. So that's where we come up with Substrate-connect, a real Substrate client that runs in JavaScript. So just to get to the basics of this, of a full node and a light client, for those who might not be aware, is that the full node goes from the beginning and verifies all the transactions inside every block, as well as every block, making sure everything is cryptographically secure and correct. It holds the chain storage in its database, and it holds all past blocks and state, and it's not all past state, but the current state as well. And at initial startup, depending on the blockchain you're running, can take hours or days. Obviously, there's been in Ethereum recently some really great improvements on that. I know with Polkadot it takes just a few hours, and there's already more improvements coming up and coming very soon. With the light client, it only verifies the authenticity of the blocks. So the block headers, as you may have heard, doesn't have a database, and when it's run correctly, we found a way to do it in 5 to 10 seconds. So it's a Substrate-connect is a JavaScript library that provides a Polkadot JS API connected to a bundled node. And for the developers out there who may want to ask more technical questions, as I said, I'm not a developer here. However, I understand it as much as I can. I'll answer any questions as best as I can. If not, I'll admit that I don't know. So it can also be passed as a JSON spec, as you see there as well, and runs an actual Substrate compatible node in JavaScript. And there's no trick. The node is run by the JavaScript engine, directly connects to the chain. The API is very similar with interacting with an RPC node, which this is not. For the developers looking to test this out, I would recommend to keep up to date with the changes that are coming, because there's going to be some API changes before the final release, but it should be very easy. It can be experimented right now. Hopefully I'll be able to add some links when I'm done with the talk so people can just click through. And there is already, if there's any Polkadot users using Polkadot.js, if you go to the Polkadot, the main relay chain, and select the different providers we have, either the one that's hosted by Parity, the central point of failure I was talking about earlier, or there's other kind of distributed node services that do a different layer of this decentralization. There's also light client experimental, which I've gotten to work myself. However, I think right now, currently, there's no way to do any transactions. You can view the chain state and all the balances and so on, but you can't do any transactions right now to protect users. So right now there's a problem, with each tab having its own connections. And going back to the beginning, this is a multi-chain project. Polkadot itself is very multi-chain focused. There's the relay chain that secures and finalizes and connects together all the parachains that are currently being connected to Polkadot and Kusama as well. And there's many different UIs happening. And if each UI needs its own JavaScript tab being run, this can lead to kind of lesser performance that we don't want. So we've come up with a solution, a way to really create a browser extension that utilizes Substrate-connect, a Substrate-connect browser connection that is able to share the resources and really have multi-chain, multi-light client solution at the click of a button. Yeah, and that's what the connection is all about. So it's actually two things, Substrate-connect. There's the JavaScript library that runs an actual node. However, if the user goes to a front end, a UI that's utilizing the JavaScript library, but they have the extension, it would automatically go to the more efficient version of Substrate-connect, the browser extension. And yeah, it actually syncs in about 5 to 10 seconds per chain, and then afterwards, it's pretty much instantaneous. It's not finished yet. However, it has a nice UI that will give overview to the end user. There is the optional auto fallback to a node per page if something is going wrong. It speeds up chain initialization by quite a bit. And as I was saying, with 5 to 10 seconds per chain, it's also resistant to malicious web pages, so it can't use the other applications that are also using the same extension. And as I said, it's still in development, but should be out very soon. And that's basically the talk. And again, it's very important, I think, that anyone who can consider and understand how important decentralization is to give developers and users the opportunity to make decentralization the default. So thanks a lot. That's my talk.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Phil. Couldn't agree. Definitely a new set of tools that
I'm getting really distorted microphone.
Yeah, you sound like a robot.
How about now?
Sorry.
It's still sounding like you're like warping in from like the future as a Terminator or something.
Maybe a reconnect. I can try to answer the questions myself, if that's okay. I don't know how much time we have. Okay, well, welcome to CSCON. I see two questions in the chat. I'll try to answer. So, how important is hardware for hosting P2P nodes? It depends on which nodes you're talking about. So, if you're talking about archive nodes, or there's a whole range of P2P nodes. So, what's great about Substrate-connect is that it can go down to run on Raspberry Pis, which is really important. So something I was talking to a colleague earlier today, and he was talking about decentralization is also a big part of it is making things smaller. And that includes like going down to the individual user, but also breaking the user into individual devices. So my phone, my laptop, my home server, the 10 Raspberry Pis, checking my weather or whatever they do. It can be a big, the more important question is not how important the hardware is, but what do you want to accomplish by hosting a node? So if you want to be a validator if you want to just like, again, get some chain data for a display on a Raspberry Pi, you can do that. You would just probably want a light client forever. If you want to be a validator on Solana, you might need a Google cluster to do that. So there's a huge range between that. So let's see, anything's possible. Polkadot Hackathon, a good place to start, of course. I believe we have a Polkadot events page. Polkadot events. If you just search for Polkadot events, go to polkadot.network. The last event we had was Polkadot Decoded. There's plenty of talks you could also watch from the last. If you're more technical, something more important and more relevant might be Sub-Zero, and search for that. And there's plenty of technical talks there that just happened about a month ago in October.
Amazing. Yeah,
Amazing.
I'm going to be taking over for Stu while he restarts his
right.
computer. But thank you for your time and your talk. That was amazing to get some insights from someone that works at Parity. And sorry about the little thing with Stu. He had to. I think he's
probably.
It's
It's
the
pretty
future
funny.
now.
Let me try this one more time.
Oh, there you are. I can hear you.
That's
now.
working again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't know. It's I had my AirPods in for the first 2 hours of the show, and then they were dying, so I had to take them out. And I'm just so I don't know if we got through all the questions, but it looks like it.
I think I did. Yeah.
So maybe I'm right in time to say thank you one last time to Phil for making an appearance today and sharing a very engaging presentation with us. And yeah, if you also would like to drop any social handles in the chat, so folks can get there you go, perfect. I really like your background too.
Yeah, I'm at the Parity offices here.
So that's a physical background.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like it. Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, Phil, for
no problem.
taking the time, and
having me.
yeah, always good to hear from you.
Thanks. Take care.